Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Expressions Podcast. Today is episode 26 and I'm so excited because I have an awesome guest on today. His name is Ryan Hinkson, otherwise known as Eat Famous, and he has over 260,000 followers on Instagram. I think it's 269 at this point, but it should be well over 270 when this video gets posted. Amazing feed. I've actually been following him for a while, a couple years now on Instagram on my foodie account, which not many people know I have. I just love his content. So I'm so excited to have you in on this discussion here today. But before we get into that, I'd like to say hi to my co-host here. So hi, Brian. How's it going?
It's going awesome. Hey, Aurora, Mark, and Ryan. Very nice to meet you. Very excited for this conversation too. As I mentioned to you earlier, Ryan, I was watching your interview that you did previously with Jonathan, Harvey, and really interesting stuff. And there was some stuff that we've had happen to our podcast in the past that brought up some questions in my head. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here this week.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
And how about you, Mark? How are you doing today?
Doing excellent. Excellent. Had a great drive into Sault Ste. Marie, uneventful, which is always the way you want it. And there was no traffic and hardly any construction. So it was literally perfect.
Guy drives all day and then just jumps on the podcast. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I literally got here with 15 minutes to spare. So
excellent.
Good.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So thanks again, Ryan, for being on. So for those of our listeners who may not know much about you or your account, could you give a little description of what it is you do, as well as maybe how you kind of got into it?
Of course. Thanks, guys, for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. And also, once again, although I was probably super Canadian and apologize a million times, thanks for bearing with my little last second run in. So what I do, I guess in its simplest form, is I eat a ton of delicious food and I capture it via photograph, video. Technically, or I guess officially, I'm a content creator. I've also been deemed a food culturalist. It's just my job to share stories around food, not just the food itself, but the people who prepare it, and the interactions that happen in and around it, whether it's the dining table and those who are enjoying it, or the stories about those who are preparing it, or how that food has come to be. So I would be lying if I said I have a very difficult job. It's probably harder explaining it than it is actually doing it.
I love that. One of the things that we do the show for is to talk to people who do what they love to do. That's right. The whole point of what we do. People who are creative, people who have just managed to turn their entire lifestyle into their passion and so on. So that's beautiful that you're able to do that. How is that side of the world, though, able to keep you afloat? Like, how does the financing work? How does the payout work with an Instagram and all that? Like, right. For somebody who hasn't done it. Now, by the way, this is coming from a place of I've been doing videos for years, and I think I have 100 followers, on my own channel. We have 60 some odd on this one. It's not like we have huge draw. So how does somebody who wants to take it to that next level? We do it because we love doing this, and this is good for our mental health. But how does somebody who really wants to take it to that next level and think of it as a business, how does somebody just jump in and make that an actual career?
First off, find yourself someone that can build a time machine, because I honestly, I feel like I was very lucky when I undertook, I guess, this whole thing. The plan wasn't even to become a content creator per se, or an influencer. When I started working on Instagram, this is the primary channel that I use, there weren't people that were paying regular people to do anything really. and it was a slow grind, and it was kind of undefined. I fell into it, to be honest. I was just basically going out to restaurants, and I was capturing what I was eating and sharing it. And I no formal photography training, didn't own a camera, was doing everything on, like, I think an iPhone 3 at the time. So the photos were terrible, but I had a little bit of a rare strike of genius that once a week I started implementing something that I deemed, it was like Eat Famous Follow Fridays, or Feature Fridays, sorry, where I would take a photo from someone who was much better at taking photos than I was, and share it with their permission, of course, letting them know that, hey, I love what you're doing. I'd love to share this with my audience. And what that did was, first off, populate my feed at least once a week with some much better looking photos. And it gave, people another reason to either follow or engage with me. So I guess what I'm saying is, I think the best road to success in this type of world is honestly, and I'm not trying to just sound great or humble, but it's honestly building a community. Because after those Feature Fridays started to take off, there was a bunch of people who I was showing love to, and they would show it back. And then, the people who followed them would take a look at what I was doing. And I think that's the surest way in a world that's really reliant on, connections with people that you don't know right off the bat. I mean, a lot of times when we start something, we're going to pull in those from our friend circles or our families to, please follow or support, and that's fine. But after a point, that can only do so much. And you have to really start looking outward in terms of people who are in the same community, have the same interest as you. And also, trying your best to connect with people that are doing what you want to do really well and at a higher level. That was very, very, very big for me.
That's a great tip. Definitely. Mm-hmm. You want to reach out to the people that can elevate you and bring you up, right?
Definitely. And I mean, it's not like if I DM Drake, he's going to answer. But I mean, a lot of people are within reach, right? And I feel like creatives, especially at this time in life, generationally now, we're seeing a lot more collaboration over competition. So I think people are more apt to sharing information, resources, tips. And I mean, just with a bigger pool of people to draw from, although you may have some people who are not as willing to share or reach out or connect, there's just so many people that you're bound to come in contact with someone who's really good, who's really connected, and also willing to, lend a helping hand and share.
Like yourself. I mean,
definitely.
You took the time tonight to spend with us, and there's not a huge, I guess you could say there's not a huge reward for you at this point because we have our limited followers.
I'm out of here.
But the fact that you're taking the time to sit with us and have this chat, I really do appreciate it, and it says a lot about your character.
Appreciate it. Thanks. I'm glad to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. One question. So obviously, I've just gone onto your Instagram, so you have one more follower. I just followed you because
nice.
Food. So you were saying you were reaching out to those people that were better at it, and obviously influencers. Do you still do that, or is all of your content pretty much just your foods that you're finding and eating now?
Right. So it's probably been just a little over 2 years that it was. I had to make the decision to have all the content be exclusively mine, just because I do a lot of paid partnerships with corporations and businesses, a lot of national brands. So I wanted them to feel confident that, whatever they were seeing on the account was reflective of what they would be getting. And I got a little better since the iPhone 3 days, so a little comfortable with it just being my stuff now. So yeah. But there was a long period of time where, it was a little bit of a mishmash of my stuff, other people's stuff. There was a point in time where my face was not part of the Instagram at all. Like it was just food. So it definitely went through a lot of different incarnations.
That's an interesting twist, though. Sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
So I was going to say, it's just scrolling through here. I see a lot of things where there's multiple images, some multiple images with you, but I also see videos that you're doing as well. And obviously not going to watch them now, but I'll watch them afterwards. But definitely you interacting with the food.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. It's a really good take. And as we were talking at the beginning of the show, I haven't had dinner yet, so now I am very hungry.
That was a mistake, Mark. I'm telling you, that was a little bit of a mistake.
Oh well, I'm sure I will not waste away.
Right. You'll have inspiration though. You'll have inspiration.
That's right. That's right.
Mark is easily inspired by the foodies that we have on our show. When we had our chef Christina on, he's still cooking food that we were talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I acquired a smoker shortly before. Actually, during that show, I think I was trying some food on a smoker.
Right.
So it was.
I recently joined the smoker club, actually in the winter, oddly enough, and yeah, it's definitely all it's cracked up to be. I know there's people that kind of poke fun at those who do it, but I love it. I love it.
I was going to mention before. Sorry, Mark.
No, sorry. I'll just finish we'll finish the smoker talk here, but it really becomes a process. Like it takes several hours to cook anything on a smoker. So, I mean, you can do things, fast, but, smokers are all about low and slow. So, so it literally to do ribs it's an all day affair. Really is.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And then they're gone in 20 minutes.
The irony. Yeah.
That's why you make lots.
Right. Exactly.
It's kind of like lobster. I love lobster, but the effort to take it all out and stuff like that is a deterrent.
Sure.
I was going to mention before how your face in the earlier stuff, you didn't have your face in your Instagram at all. Why was that a decision you made? Because a lot of people want that attention.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was, I guess I wanted the focus to be on the food primarily. And as I saw the scene in the city grow, where you were just having, tons of food related accounts. And then I think once the restaurants kind of got comfortable with the fact that influencers were something that, not that they would just have to put up with, but were, a force that could help, promote and show some love and attention to their restaurants, they started really, reaching out and having people come in and acquiring PR agencies just to find influencers to come in to highlight the food. So as the scene grew, a lot of the people with the top accounts were all getting invited to the same restaurants, and a lot of the same food trends were being covered. So I knew that I wasn't like the best photographer. And as an increased number of people were all going to the same place, I was like, the only thing, and featuring a lot of the same foods and dishes and trends, I was like, the only thing I have different than anybody else is myself. So it was kind of just like a test. And I was like, okay, if people don't absolutely hate me or just, completely unfollow, then, maybe just injecting a little bit of myself could help. Also, too, that was probably around the onset when Instagram was trying to compete, or I guess kind of flick Snapchat off of their shoulder. And they, they really kind of stepped up what you could do with video. And they just kind of made it a more appealing part of the platform. So I kind of ran with it, and it helped to give me some identity and, narrow my branding a little bit. So yeah, it was something that it took a while to get comfortable with, to be honest, because it's a weird thing to be looking at yourself and seeing yourself and putting yourself out there, especially when, again, my main concern has always been the food. So yeah, but it's something I'm a little more comfortable with now, and I feel like it helped.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Like being somebody who has a food account and who has followed food accounts for a very long time before I made my own food account, I feel like it's a big thing right now, putting a face to the account in the foodie world. I think that there's a lot of fake accounts out there that take content from other pages and they're just posting the food and they're trying to get popular, and there's lots of that all over the internet, and seeing identical posts from same accounts that look exactly the same, but one has lower resolution photo, and know that it's been stolen from that account, right? So once you put a face, like an actual picture face to it, or any sort of anything that's going to give personality to it, I think people respond to that in a big way.
I was going to say, or have a brilliant idea like your account. Like your account, I mean, when you explained, you know, the idea behind it, I was like, this is brilliant. And I think you really need that, right? Because we're in a situation where, for all intents and purposes, like a reason why I reply, kind of doubling back on something we spoke on earlier, the reason why I'm always willing to kind of like help if somebody reaches out or, you know, share some knowledge is because like these things are built communally, right? These channels are built communally. And I really feel that, like, you know, they can change at a moment's notice. So like, it's, for all intents and purposes, it's pretty much free to sign up and be a part of this. So just as easy it is to sign up or to follow someone. Someone could be like, oh, I'm bored of Ryan, or, you know, this is annoying, I'm unfollowing, right? So I try to really connect with my followers and those that I engage with in the community. And I feel like if you've got, whether it's, you know, personality that's like your face, or a strong kind of theme or an idea behind an account like yours, Aurora, then you know, you stand a better chance at having something that people can connect to and feel a part of.
Definitely. And thank you so much. It's really nice hearing that from you, considering you have such a very established account. Hearing you compliment it, I feel kind of flustered.
I know it's true. It's awesome. I think it's brilliant. It's very unique. It just feels like there's actual thought and effort and care being put into it, and that can get lost, right? I mean, we've got, you know, upwards of almost over 2 billion users, right? So there's a lot of things that aren't really worth the time. So when you find something special and that, you know, means something to the curator, it resonates.
Awesome.
Aurora, you gotta tell everybody what this is about.
Okay.
Spill the beans.
So I have a foodie account on Instagram, as we've been saying, and it's Miss Foodie Let's Eat on Instagram. And the whole idea of the account is that I don't post on my feed the pictures of the food. I post the aftermath of eating it. It's based on the whole concept of if your plate, the emptier your plate is, or your dish is after you're done eating, the more delicious the food is.
I get it.
And I kind of describe the meal. On top of that, like my stories, I have my stories where I actually post the food, so it's not like completely disconnected from it. And I sorted my stories into different types of food and desserts and things like that, so people can actually see the food. But the main theme of the feed and the whole account is that it's the food aftermath.
Very cool.
So
I like that.
I love it.
Thank you.
That is cool. And you also have one more follower.
Thanks, Mark.
I'll have to find that after.
Yeah.
Now back to Ryan.
Yes.
While we were talking here, I was pretty interested in how COVID impacted your account, because I know the restaurant industry took a huge hit during COVID, especially right at the beginning, before, you know, everybody was getting on Uber Eats and stuff like that. So how did that impact your account?
Yeah, so it was a funny time, because I mean, I've been doing this for going on 8 years now. So a lot of although I do a lot of like brand partnerships and things with companies that people might not feel like they can touch or connect as much with as like their local mom and pop stuff. But I've had the privilege of having like a lot of great, very long-standing relationships with restaurants that have maybe 1-2 locations. And so initially, you know, when we had a lot of just unanswered questions, my biggest fear was that, like, oh my gosh, are my friends going to be okay? Like, will their businesses survive? And I know, you know, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of great places and favorites to the pandemic. Personally, a lot of the places I've worked with figured out a way to quickly kind of make adjustments and the changes that were necessary to survive and even thrive in some cases. Like there was a lot of places that their models or the changes and adjustments they made worked perfectly for COVID. Through tough times, like you never want to see a situation where people are losing businesses, livelihood, but one of the good things that comes from it is it breeds a lot of like ingenuity. People, you get into survival mode and you do some incredible things or things you might not have considered. Hey,
sorry.
No.
This is
That's
her
cool.
room. I just get to use it once in a while.
Trust me, I'm in a room that's not mine either, so I know exactly. I know exactly what that's like.
She's gonna be in the window in a second. Don't worry.
But yeah, so like a lot of people were able to do some good things and even see some growth. So a lot of how I did things had to shift as well for me, not just the restaurants. So I mean, pre-pandemic, any given week, I was probably out 4 to 5. I almost am embarrassed to say 6 times a week, at restaurants, eating out. But when restaurants had to close doors and not have people in, there was obviously a little bit of time where, things were a little stagnant, but then a lot of places just would come to me, or, if I could safely access a spot that wasn't serving, and, we just kind of found workarounds and ways to remind people that they were still serving, that these restaurants were still open, that some new and fun things were happening. I know we haven't seen the end of what the pandemic's probably going to do to a couple more businesses, which is unfortunate. But for now, there's been some good and bad, and I guess that's just kind of like, what life is just more dialed in over the last little bit. But it's good to see that, like, not only did people find ways to make themselves more appealing or to stay afloat, but you saw like a lot of helping happen. You saw a lot of collaborations. You saw restaurants where if they knew another spot, was having issues with a supplier and they didn't have produce, they were dropping their produce off at other places so other places could stay open too, right? So,
So nice.
yeah, you got reminded that because I mean, the restaurant business is not for making money per se. It's not a get rich quick scheme. Like a lot of places, they spend their entire lives in there, and a lot of people don't pay themselves for a while, right? So it's definitely a career, a discipline, a job that's birthed out of love a lot of times, and you really saw that come through during COVID, and it continues.
It sounds like you have a pretty tight relationship with a lot of the restaurants that you work with.
Yeah, they feed me.
And you thank them for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, do you actually keep in touch with these guys? Like, I would imagine that during COVID, they would have reached out to you and said something like, it is hard. Maybe you can help us out a little more. Maybe you can do this. Maybe this relationship can sway a different way. Was there a lot of that with the relationships that you have with the restaurants?
Oh yeah. There was some places that literally I like didn't even wait for them to say, hey, this is going to be tough. Like there was places I just waived fees immediately. Like I didn't even say, hey, is it good? Is it bad? Just to know that like we can catch up. I want them there. Cause like, I mean, for me, I don't really post, or I should say, I don't post places that I wouldn't be comfortable saying to you guys, hey, off camera, go eat here. You know what I mean? Or I'm going to go take my mom for a bite. Like, I have to like the establishment. So I want these places to be around, whether I'm posting photos or not. So if me being able to kind of work with them throughout a rough time meant that I was doing a little bit to help them stick around throughout, then for me that like it's a no-brainer.
It's a win-win.
And then again, like, yeah, exactly. And then like I said, a lot of places found a way to thrive too. So it worked out. It definitely it's been okay.
What did you do before this?
So I worked for Coca-Cola for a very long time. And I'd always, before doing this, had worked for very like large kind of corporations in jobs that I, to be honest, like never really felt like really, really rewarding, or I wasn't able to use my creativity on a day-to-day basis. So I'd always kind of had a 9 to 5, and before even like the term side hustle became a thing, it would either be like a side hustle or something to help me foster like creativity or keep those juices going. I used to want to be a rapper way, way, way back in the day. So I was either doing music. There was times where I was like the marketing manager for a men's non-professional basketball league. I did a stint at Trend Hunter, writing articles about like technology and trends and stuff. So I've always, if I've been working in a 9 to 5, that was like a very kind of serious, structured role. I always had something on the side to, help me keep fun and creative, I guess.
You've always been a creator.
Always, yes.
I'm learning through the podcast that everybody starts early. Everybody who's a creator starts early. Mm-hmm. We spoke with a TikTok person earlier, and one of the things that really caught me is how young he was when he started, and what else he did even younger than that in the creative world. It's just like, even for myself, and I'm sure Aurora and Mark, who unfortunately I think he had a connection issue. He's at a hotel, so he had to dip probably. But I could remember memories back when I was 5 years old, playing with stereos and music, and my parents playing music, and all of these influences from a very young age, which has carried me right through. And to find something that I've been able to do and love to do every day is just a godsend. And to be able to be a creator and see that your 9 to 5 isn't quite cutting it, and find a path. And I heard you mention on the other interview as well, how you have to really go and get it. You have to be aggressive, and you have to, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but maybe you could speak to that. How aggressive did you have to be to get out of that 9 to 5 and switch into this as your full-time?
Because I mean, you could be making some money. Say you have a side hustle, and you're making money, and you might do the calculations where you're like, okay, I'm spending 10 hours a week, and I'm making X amount, and if I multiply that into the 40 hours a week that most of us work on paper, at least, I'm hitting my number, right? But there's a whole lot of variables that come when you work for yourself, whether it's on social like I do, or content creation, anything, right? You're not guaranteed that like that every 2-week paycheck is going to hit. Your all departments, your accounts payable, your accounts receivable, your HR, your everything, even if it's an operation of one. So you're wearing a ton of hats. So you're doing much more, right? And things come in cycles, right? Like the money sometimes comes in waves. A lot of times, things like an insurance or pension, or extra savings for later, those don't factor in. So there are a ton of things that you have to kind of set out. So I'm for myself, I would always had a number that far exceeded what I was doing yearly on paper. It wasn't enough to feel like I can match it, just out of security. And then you kind of move away from that, and you think about the fulfillment that you get. I think once I saw, I know that it was attainable to me far beyond when I actually got brave enough to make the transition. So although I was trying to be the best I could be at it, and I was being aggressive, but that kicked in before either knowing I could do it full time, or even deciding, okay, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna go for it. I think for myself, and when you're creating, I think you want to be the best, whether you're being just highly inspired by like your peers or your contemporaries or your idols, or you might be just kind of like trying to push yourself. But I feel like creative people, we know what we want to achieve, right? Like you could spend 10 minutes or 10 years on a painting. You know what I mean? But until it looks exactly how you want it, you're not going to stop. And, you know, you could nail vocals in the studio on one take, or you might be in the booth for like hours, but you know what you're searching for once you hear it, see it, feel it, taste it. I'm sure it's the same thing for, you know, chefs, right? So that aggressiveness and really that spirit of wanting to go get it, I think that was more out of wanting to create the best stuff that I could, as opposed to saying I need to be this good to be able to like quit or pursue it full time. Awesome. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So Aurora, I think I saw you had your hand up. You wanted to say something earlier.
I think it was just about Mark getting back earlier, because I saw the Facebook thing, but it was resolved.
Welcome back, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what happened, but I was trying to plug in to get some charging going, and everything went downhill from there.
Oh, geez. So I'm actually curious because you'd mentioned in kind of our questionnaire that we filled out before the show that you were actually in school for something before Eat Famous really blew up. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So just as I had mentioned, I've always kind of had to do something creative to go along with whatever 9-to-5 situation I was in when I was doing that. And I was enrolled in an interior design class because when I was really young, I wanted to be an architect. And then when that kind of went out of reach, or, you know, I didn't make the moves, I guess, in that direction, but I always was really, really fascinated with, you know, creating like spaces that are comfortable and inspiring and beautiful. So yeah, I had just kind of started in those courses, but then at a point it was school. Eat Famous was starting to grow, and then I still had a 9-to-5, so I had to cut something. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't an easy decision because it was definitely a passion I had for a while. It was just a lot, doing kind of 3 things that all felt like full-time endeavors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely.
You can always get back to it.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's so true. You never really put it away, and I think, you know, those kind of like passions or interests, they always kind of linger within you. So yeah, who knows? You never know.
That's one of the things I love the most about photography is I find that there are people starting off in photography at 5 years old or 95 years old, and there's really no reason anybody can't get back to their creative self at any point, aside from obviously health reasons that could come up. But without that, I mean, you can always get back to it.
That's so true. That's so true. And I mean, with like, there's always something to capture. You know what I mean? With like something like photography, it's funny. There's a funny thing that kind of happens in the food or the content creator space, with like, I guess, real photographers versus people that use their phones or stuff. Because I know I have like this huge, although photography is a big part of like what I do, I have like this incredible like admiration for actual photographers. Yeah, it's a craft that I really, really respect. So it's like I don't try to label myself as that. Like I take photos as a part of what I do, but yeah, photography is something that I'm very captivated by.
It's interesting because I do photography. All 3 of us do photography,
right?
But I can't make food photos.
Really,
I just can't. I can't. The combination of lighting and plating. I think the fact that you want to get into interior design also says a lot about you, because it shows that you are good at composing and you have an artistic sense for composition. And for food photos, I think lighting and composition is key. You can make a piece of lard look like ice cream. So right. If you have the ability to do that, which I think that's where I'm lacking, is that creative. And I think if I were to have that interior design sense like you have, that would really help as a photographer. But I'm curious, since our lone non-photographer host isn't with us right now, I'd like to talk about this for a quick second. You don't use an SLR. You use your cell phone.
I do.
And you've done cell phone food photography since day one. So
yes.
The photos look great.
Thanks.
I mean, there's obviously no issue there. DSLR versus cell phones, you're talking 72 DPI versus 300 for Instagram and things like that. That doesn't matter at all, right? So you're picking the perfect tool for the medium that you've chosen. Have you ever been tempted to upgrade and to take some courses on food photography and lighting and stuff like that?
Of course. Intimidation is probably the largest factor that's kind of kept me away. I mean, to say like I don't mess around with the camera every now and then would be false. I've definitely been fortunate that for the medium, a cell phone works just fine. And I've figured out in terms of the composition side and what people kind of like, those parts I have figured out. So, the hardware hasn't become as much of an issue for me. But I mean, I would love to, just because I do have some clients that sometimes they'll take some of the shots and want to use them on, like, say, menu boards or actual menus, and then it doesn't translate as well. I remember walking into a restaurant, seeing a photo I used on a menu board, and at first I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I started to get super anxious because it was like peeling back the layers, and it was kind of revealing it that, it wasn't taken for that. So I think when time presents itself, I'll probably try to pay a little bit more attention to messing with the camera. I thankfully, one of my absolute best friends is like a professional photographer, and I have a couple other really good friends who are great with cameras. So it's more about just kind of taking some time with them, and they'll often like lend me like their beater camera or their second or third to play around with. So I'm comfortable, but yeah, just for Instagram and the way that I guess like especially the kind of foods I shoot, like something like dripping with cheese that's oozing is only going to look great for like a minute maybe, right? So the setup and kind of changing settings that might be needed with a camera doesn't always necessarily work for the style of stuff I shoot. But definitely like a real camera is something that is in the works for sure.
Well, we know a few people that work at camera stores. I don't know. Maybe we can.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe we can talk. Anyway, Aurora, did you want to say something?
I think it's very interesting. I mean, you use your phone for the pictures, but you have a really great, obviously, really great eye for photography and food photography, and you have a great eye for lighting as well. Right. I met you at the Henry store, and for a bit in the conversation there, you were actually talking about the fact that you actually use lighting. On your pictures, and it's great. You set up the light in a really great way. So a big part of photography is light. I know Brian is always talking about the definition of photography.
The origin of the word,
it's painting with light. So
right.
Yeah. So you've got more than half the battle there. So
it was thank you for that. It was forced upon me though, because when I started shooting, I couldn't. I feel so almost dumb admitting this, but like my favorite Instagrammers primarily were from the West Coast, so like people in Cali, and I was like, man, how do they get these great photos all the time? And then someone was like, they shoot outside, there's sunlight all the time. And then, being here where we're not getting as much sun, and then being in restaurants that, lighting varies completely from restaurant to restaurant. There's no standard for restaurant lighting. So when I got, some portable lighting that could negate shadows and help me manipulate a situation and turn, the darkest, dimmest place into somewhere that was perfect to shoot, it wasn't lost on me how important lighting was. So I adapted really, really quick to making sure that whether by hook or by crook, I was going to get the best light possible.
Do you bring a lot of gear with you when you go to a restaurant?
A bit. It depends on the nature of the shoot, timing. you know, if we have the benefit of shooting outside, if it's going to be a day that's overcast, so we're not, you know, fighting, you know, some crazy shadows and things. I've got some standard things like 2 Viltrox lights that go with me everywhere, you know, backup batteries for those, tripods. You know, it really depends kind of on the job, but there's definitely a ton of stuff at home. It just really depends on what makes it out to a shoot with me. Yeah.
Yeah, because you know those professional photographers show up with 10 bags of stuff.
Man.
It's just like you don't want to get into that. You're doing just fine.
My same good friend that I was referencing, it literally looks like he's got a couple of bodies with him every time. Like he's got this bag that looks like 2 hockey bags just full of gear.
Stands and lights.
Yeah.
Yep, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't enjoy it. I don't.
Yeah, that's why I'm so big. I have the hockey bag.
Ah.
Well,
Right.
that's awesome. I actually am a little bit curious because I feel like family influences a lot in following down a creative path from a young age and continuing to create. So, how does your family and friends kind of influence you?
So it's very interesting. My parents are both from Barbados. They immigrated to Canada in the later 70s. And so for them, you know, conventional paths, degrees, diplomas, you know, jobs with pensions, reliability, security, that was like paramount for them. So in terms of like, but it was funny though, because my parents are big lovers of like art and culture. So although initially when I was young, there wasn't really like, oh, you know, like go do anything or be artistic in terms of like seeking it out for a profession. But our home was like full with music. You know, my dad used to write poetry, you know, so like, and there was always the tools for my sister and I to be able to create all through the home, you know, paint, pencil, crayons, marker, like everything. So, you know, there'd always been ways for me to find a creative outlet, sorry, and kind of, you know, plug into it. And from when I was really, really, really young. So when I look at the fact that I'm doing something creative now, although initially I would think because of kind of like how my parents viewed career, it seems surprising that I'm doing what I'm doing now. But then when you look a little deeper, it doesn't, because all the tools were there initially. And then a lot of, I think, you know, we fall into friend groups with people that are similar to us for the most part. So a lot of my friends are highly creative. A lot of my friends are from my music days. And you see a lot of like, if, you know, say the music doesn't work out or it takes you down a different path, you know, things like photography or theater pop up. So like I said, like one of my best friends is a photographer. My other best friend is an actor. And then another great friend of mine is a music producer, right? So I'm always around energy and people who are inspiring me and having me kind of, you know, get a sneak peek into things that they're very passionate about. So it's a big part of my my inner circle for sure.
That's great. That really helps stay motivated and stay
Mm-hmm.
striving to do better.
Yeah.
That interview you did with Jonathan was really interesting to me. One of the things that he brought up was, well, actually, you kind of brought it up, how LeBron has his thing, strive for greatness,
Mm-hmm.
and you think of it, strive for knowing yourselfness.
Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant. It's such an important thing for people to think about. Everybody is striving to be the greatest, the best. Unfortunately, we can't all be the best. We can't all be the greatest. But if you understand who you are and you start to accept your place or what you like to do and embrace, I shouldn't say accept, but embrace who you are, that's when I think that next phase of life can begin, and you can really start to progress as an individual, accept just all the good things that could possibly come. It was tough for me for a long time because I didn't think of myself as a photographer. I played music. I didn't think of myself as a musician. I never really thought of myself as a creator until Day Tripper Photo, the business that I run, teaching photography. And I got the inspiration of, or the confidence in myself by seeing other people succeed and getting other people doing really well with their own photography. And that made me think, well, okay, I guess I'm doing something right myself.
Yep, definitely.
And that's when I realized who I am. And I've kind of embraced what I like to do. And that's make other people better than who I am.
Right.
So when you said that, and for LeBron James, obviously he's quite successful. You know, he's done well for himself, young man.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. Strive for greatness is important, but knowing yourself first, I think, knowing yourself, yourself first. I think you said that is so important. I'm really glad you said that, and the fact that we have you on turned me on to that interview, and that interview opened my eyes to that. So
nice.
All good things. All good things.
Yeah, I for me, and it wasn't to say that striving for greatness is not important or not even something that I do myself, but when you understand who you are, the definition of what greatness is will probably change. And it's not lessening, our efforts or, striving for a participation medal, but it's like, it's truly understanding like what really, really matters to you. Because, if you take someone else's definition of greatness, you really don't know if there's anything in that end goal that will matter to you. But when you know who you are, you know what you want, then you can easily strive for what's great, because you've set that table, you've defined those terms, and then it really makes that race worthwhile to run, because you know exactly what you're heading for. And it unlocked so much in me when I kind of got comfortable with with my interests and where my goals lied, and what matters to me, who matters to me. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Mark, did you want to share anything?
No, I really think that the whole idea of striving for greatness, it's a great thing, but I think what we get clouded in is what is the definition of greatness, and you touched on it there, Ryan. So for me, for my greatness, in my career, I always wanted to be known as Mark Who. So that was sort of my thing, and that went out the window as I climbed the corporate ladder a little bit. But in my photography, I stopped shooting professionally, and my greatness now is when I go into a friend's house and one of my images is on their wall, or if my mother is my biggest fan. Her house is littered with my pictures. She just loves everything I've ever produced, and Dad prints it. So that for me, that's where I fit it, where the people that are closest to me enjoy my craft. They enjoy my images as a photographer. So that's where my greatness comes from now.
I love that.
Yeah. So as we're getting closer to the end of the show, we have a couple questions that we usually ask right towards the end. But before I do that, does anybody have any final questions? Anything?
I have one.
Okay. Yeah.
I have many, but I'll go with one. One of the things I also thought was interesting on that interview was when Jonathan brought up the idea of what are you going to do next, and then you started talking about some kind of influencer agency idea. Has anything gone forward with that?
Not yet. COVID definitely threw a couple wrenches in a bunch of the plans. So, but it's definitely something I still want to do, just because when I started to gain, I don't want to say like notoriety, but as the account grew and opportunities came my way, there was so much of a gray area. And, I don't put that on, companies maybe trying to like take advantage of myself or anyone like me. But I feel like because the space was so new, it was kind of like the Wild West. There weren't rules. There wasn't anything you could reference from 5-10 years ago in terms of like, pay or exclusivity, or, your rights and ownership to your materials and what you're signing off from if you agree to create content for somebody. And a lot of times, especially around conversations around money can be difficult. We're taught mostly at a young age not to discuss your personal finances with others. So you come up in a situation where you've got a ton of peers who are getting similar opportunities to you, and it's all out there. So I'm seeing people that I know working with company X and company Y, and I'm thinking, oh, wow, how'd they land that? But then, maybe you're too prideful to ask, or, an opportunity comes your way and you want to seem like you've got everything covered and you're so on top of the ball that you may not reach out to somebody, say, hey, do you have a lawyer look over your contract, or how much money should I be getting paid for this? So I think, I wanted to think about creating a situation where there's just a lot more transparency, where people feel comfortable and at ease asking questions about a field that's, still relatively new, and for all intents and purposes, it's on the creatives to kind of handle a lot of things for themselves. I mean, there's agencies now that are popping up that rep creators from like a talent standpoint. They may secure business for you, represent you in deals, but I'm not saying that those things are bad. I have representation as well, but I mean, I'm just kind of thinking about creating a space and an organization in which, like, there's a ton of resources for anyone that is, in need of help or direction. Because I feel like it's an ever-changing world, and it's a new world with not a lot to reference. And I know it would have helped me a ton. And the people that took time, to tell me things that they really didn't have to, and shared personal things about wins and losses, and were transparent about money and what I could be earning, and I'm so grateful to them. So to be able to give back on that end would be huge, because I know, without some key conversations and trust with other peers, I would not even be close to where I am right now.
Well, I wish you luck with that. I think that's a great idea. It's a fantastic idea. And if there's anything that we can do, or our contacts could do for that, then by all means, just ask.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's really awesome. I actually have a final question for you, Ryan. We might have covered it a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering if you have any main pieces of advice to somebody who is starting out in content creation, maybe more specifically creating on Instagram and trying to make a little bit money at it or collaborate with people. So I'm just curious if you have any advice.
Oh, for sure. First off, we live in an age where information travels super fast. So manage your reputation. Be the kind of person that people want to work with. Don't think for an instant that just because you haven't worked or collaborated with someone that they haven't heard what you're like to work or collaborate with. I've heard many a story, and not that you're gonna judge everybody by what you hear about them. Like firsthand experiences are very important when making decisions about people. But PR companies, restaurants, brands, they all share notes about who shows up on time, who responds to emails, who's courteous, who's forthcoming. All of the traits that you're supposed to have in quote unquote like the real business world, they apply here. I think that's another thing too, is treating this just like you would any other business, approaching it as you would any other job. Show up, honor commitments. Also too, protect yourself, read through things. Don't think just because you're posting videos that you maybe produce yourself, where the content, or sorry, the platforms are free to join, that they don't take seriousness if you're doing it for work. So again, being very professional and treating it like a job is huge for me. Community, honoring the community, being open to people, connecting with people, and being true to yourself is another one. I'm never going to be at a restaurant, even though I practically eat everything. I'm not going to there's a new trend. There was a trend a couple summers ago, I think, for it was charcoal ice cream. It was like black
Oh,
ice
yeah.
cream. And it looked very cool. It wasn't appetizing to me. So I never ate it. I didn't take a photo of it because like the expression I would have given while eating it wouldn't read true. So yeah, I might have got like a couple likes or views or whatever on having that trend, but like, what is it going to say if someone notices that I'm not really enjoying it? So I think, you know, being true to yourself, and some people have personas on social, which is fine, but being true to that all the time, because everything's out there for consumption. Nothing really goes away. And then I think there's also a part, although you know, there are a lot of rules and best practices that are rooted more in like emotion or feeling or actions. You know, you still got to know your stuff. Research, you know, like look at your field, see who's crushing it, and even if you're not reaching out to them, and maybe you're not studying people or copying people, but look at the level of production quality that's coming out from the leaders in your field. Because if you want to compete and you want someone to pay you for it, you've got to be as good as the people who are currently being paid for it. Now, that's not to say that there's no room for growth. It's not always about numbers. Things like micro influencers, people who have followings of, you know, 2,500, can see comparable deals to like what someone like myself is commanding, because they might have a very niche account or a demographic that's hard to reach, that they know, like, you know, 80% of those 2,500 followers might be very receptive to messaging and very willing to make a purchase, right? So it's not about the numbers or the size of your account, but it's just about your approach and, you know, quality of work, and also, you know, quality of the person that you are in your dealings with people.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
That's excellent. So I just had one question, just sort of springboard off of that. Since you're talking about having deals with obviously different parties and different organizations, do you get into the end of things now where they're sending you, say for example, I noticed in your Instagram there were some things that you cooked in the house, whether they be a pizza or something like that. Do you often get something that is not yet to market, so that they can get your feedback on it, and it's something that you don't post content for? They're just looking for your opinion, sort of as a product tester, and then obviously non-disclosure, so that you don't post it on your account.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a variety of products, even like concepts for restaurants, new menu items. There's people who have sent me like ideas for, oh, I gotta remember if I'm dishonoring anything, but say like new advances in tech. So like, you know, there's I'm always getting things about like you know, some NFTs that might be coming out, and if I feel like, you know, people would be responsive to buying them, or like new online gaming platforms, and tons of app developers are always, you know, sending me beta versions of apps and things to try. And yeah, so you do, and I think it says a lot about, you know, the current state of marketing, and understanding that people aren't as responsive to messaging that comes from top down to faceless faceless corporations that are telling us what to do. I feel like that's how we used to be marketed to. You know, we were told what to buy, and we just listened. And now people believe in trust, and people that they you know, relate to, and people that they have similar interests with. And, you know, big business is cluing into that, and so the messaging comes that way. But it's up to folks like myself, that if we're in a position and, you know, we are, you know, putting forth an opinion, or trying to sell people on something, that it is something that you actually do believe in. Because people will call you out quick. My followers have been quick to be like, Ryan, are you sure this is good? I don't trust it. It's, you know, a little big businessy. Like, it happens. So I mean, there's been deals that I've had to turn down, just because I know that my audience, there wouldn't be a way that I could, you know, consciously put some things forward and have my audience believe that I'm really a believer in that product, right? So
It helps you sleep at night.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure.
So now that
Awesome.
the podcast is coming to a close, we have a few last questions for you that we ask every guest. The first one is, what's your jam? What's that song that gets you pumped up or excited or in a creative mind space that you just love listening to?
Right.
Without fail.
Okay. So there is an artist by the name of Nate Husser out of Montreal, and he has a song called Oldie. And the funny thing is, it's very slow. It's really moody, almost kind of brooding at points. Maybe not brooding, but it's definitely not something that would make you like jump out of your skin. But there's just a vibe and an energy in it that like gets me ready. So it's usually, if I want the jam that's going to pump me up, it's something usually like very high energy. But I don't know. I just feel this song so much. So it's a song I've been listening to for like 3 years. Like, just like it, you know what I mean? I listened to music from years and years ago, but I mean like actively, like, it's stood, I don't want to say the test of all time, but it's been with me like in my constant rotation for a while. Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. That's exactly what we're looking for.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So the next question is, what's your tool of the trade? It doesn't have to be something physical. It could be something not physical, obviously. What is that tool that you use on a day-to-day basis that helps you create or be creative?
Right. So for me, I'm going to say, you know what it is? It's Snapseed. It's like a Google built-in editing software. And I feel it's because like a lot of people are like, oh, you don't use like Photoshop or whatever. And I mean, again, I don't like my images to look like super edited. I don't use like any of the preset filters or anything in Instagram. But I mean, I know images for the most part need a little bit of massaging. And I find like the changes that you can make in Snapseed are pretty subtle. There's nothing super, like I'm not like dialing it way up with saturation or anything like that. So it helps me, I feel like, clean things up with it helps. Exactly. That's what's
use
up.
it all the time. Love it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's free and nice. I'm in good company. So yeah, I think Snapseed is something that I put things through. And even if I don't end up making any changes, I always just kind of run things through to make sure.
It's got everything. It's got white balance. It's got all the things that you need.
Right. See, I might have to talk to you guys about some of the more intricate parts of it. I stick to like one or two things on there, but now that I've got some photographers that I can kind of dial up in that and be like, what does this mean? What does this do?
Anytime. Anytime.
Awesome. I love it. Appreciate it.
So great. Okay. As you know, I think we talked about this in the email. Each week we ask our guests of the show to issue a challenge to our listeners or viewers.
Yeah.
So what is your challenge?
Oh, I love this. You guys they might hate me for it. And only do it if you can. And obviously, depending on your situation, you might not be able to. I know there's some people that might have, I don't know, maybe somebody has like a teenager or somebody that they've got to be in constant contact with. But something I started to do a little while ago, because so much of my time for work is spent on my phone, is I don't take my phone into the bedroom with me at night. So like once I'm, getting into that stage of whether I'm going to bed or I'm just going to my bedroom to like chill for the night and start to unwind, my phone doesn't follow me. It stays in the living room. It stays outside of the bedrooms. It just, allows me to kind of separate. And I mean, sometimes, I still might be dialed in. I may have the TV on and I'm guilty of watching something on a streaming service, but the phone kind of stays away up until the morning. And so, yeah, I get a couple uninterrupted hours in that way. So, and I find it helps too, because although I'm a big believer in drawing off of inspiration, I look at food photographers who I think are better than me. I look at stuff from photographers who shoot in completely different worlds for inspiration. But I think sometimes, you need a little bit of like your own thought and your own creative juices to bubble a little bit. So I find for me, if I have that separation from the phone, then that helps.
I like that. I don't think I could do it, but I like it. It's funny though, because at my store, and I'm sure in Aurora's as well in Woodbridge, but in my store in Newmarket, film photography has gone through the roof, through the roof. We sent out 300 envelopes of film last week alone. It's ridiculous. The biggest thing that we have coming in are disposable cameras. Mm-hmm. And I try and feel it out. For the first, I don't know, it only really happened since COVID. Before that, nobody ever used these things. And we did maybe one bin of film every month, and now we're doing 3 bins a week. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. Anyway,
actually we had somebody come into the store and tell us that it's a TikTok trend. Well, that might be why.
I've asked a lot of people why they do it, and that's one answer I've actually gotten as well. But I had a girl give me the best answer I could possibly imagine, and it was because every time she goes to grab her cell phone to take a picture, she's distracted by the 40 things, all of her notifications or this pop-up ad or whatever. And she says with a disposable camera, she's just taking pictures. She's just hanging out with her friends, taking pictures. And it really goes to what you're talking about right now is you need time away from the social media. And as an influencer, that's got to be almost impossible. So it's really great that you've given yourself that discipline to put it away and spend time with the family or, just not on the phone. I respect that. I wish I could do it. I probably won't, but
it's actually another reason why
I'm gonna try it tonight.
Try it, Mark.
Outside in the hotel hall. I'm gonna put it out in the hallway in the hotel.
I don't know if I suggest that. It might get a little tense, a little sweaty, but the first few nights, but it works. That's funny. It's actually another reason why I really have to get myself a camera and get comfortable, because once we kind of get back to traveling the way we used to. Like for myself, I love to travel, and then travel is a part of what I do for Eat Famous that's been put on pause. But, going out on vacation, especially like if I was, if I'm out with my wife or whatever, and she'd be like, leave the phone. I'm like, oh, but how are we going to take photos? And like, I have a wall at home that's like some of my like non-food, like vacation photography, family photography, some stuff that's that means a lot. So that's always like my out, like my way to sneak the phone on vacation, like every part of vacation. But if I get a camera, I can actually leave the phone in the room, and because I do like capturing memories, like via photograph. So
just get a camera with Wi-Fi, no worries.
Right,
you take pictures all day, go back to the hotel room at night, take the ones you want to your phone and work with them on Snapseed.
That's it. That's it.
So, Ryan.
I do a similar thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do a similar thing with my cameras, because obviously travel is a big, was before COVID, a big part of my life. And I usually pick one day on a vacation where I don't take a knapsack full of gear and a camera bag and 2 DSLR bodies and extra lenses. I take one point and shoot camera that Brian sold me that does everything I need it to take a good picture, but it literally fits in my pocket instead of having 40 pounds of gear. I've got one little camera. And then that way I can focus on actually having a good time and not taking pictures that day.
Right.
I literally spent the entire day today packing up my camera gear for my trip on Friday. I've got like 4 bags of stuff right here beside me. Just so much stuff.
Where are you going?
I've got a camera and a flash in my nap. That's all.
You have to have something with you all the times. I've got my flashes and all that. My wife and I are celebrating our 25th anniversary. We're going to an island up in North Bay. And so we'll be gone for the weekend. Hopefully I'll be back for Monday's show. Probably do it from the car or something like that. But really looking forward to it. I've worked straight through since last June. And, working retail, as Aurora knows and Mark knows, and our other co-host Ryan knows, it's a different environment to deal with. And this podcast has been a big part of my mental health throughout the entire period of working straight through and having to, deal with it every day. And so I really appreciate you spending the time with us and talking to us tonight. It helps me every time I do a show. And I know I've talked to Aurora and Mark, and it helps all of us a lot to be able to talk to folks like yourself who have done so well. And, it's really impressive to see the work you've put into it and how it's paying off for you. And I congratulate you. And I'm just love it. Congratulations. And thank you for spending time with us.
This is an absolute pleasure. I would gladly do it again. If we got to do a part 2 or, some other things we'd like to talk about anytime. I love you guys are fantastic.
I'm making a note of that. Finding a date right now.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you very much, Ryan. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Ryan. I am so happy you came on the show. I was kind of like, when I met you in person, I was a little starstruck. So because I'd been following you for a while, and like you had such an amazing following, and I just kind of threw it out there, like, hey, I'd love for you to be on our show, and I'm so glad you came on. Super, super happy. I do want to say, just like to your point of the challenge, I kind of do something like what you do already. I have every night, I guess starting about a year or so ago, I was kind of dealing with some, sleep troubles and anxiousness and that kind of thing. And it has really helped me a lot. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and it's timed every day from 10 p.m. until 7 a.m. So guys, if you don't see me chatting in the group chat after 10 p.m., this is why.
It's usually myself and Mark going back and forth until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Which is
so
funny
after
because
10
mine
p.m.
is on Do Not Disturb.
Yours is on Do Not Disturb?
I can bust through your Do Not Disturb.
Yeah. mine is. Well, here's the thing. If you're on it, it doesn't work. But as soon as you lock it, it goes into Do Not Disturb. So mine is from 11 p.m. until 7:30 a.m. because many of my colleagues get up at 5 a.m. and they start texting. And I don't want to hear that because that's only a couple hours after I've gone to bed.
Well, I want to thank you again, Ryan, for coming on. And thanks, Brian and Mark, for being on the show with me as well. Ryan, our co-host, could not be here today, but we had a great show, and thanks so much. Before we leave, Ryan, where can people follow you?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Eat Famous. Sometimes I pop onto Twitter at Tweet Famous, but it's TWEAT Famous. Yeah, and that's it. That's where you'll find me for sure.
Cool.
I like that. It's all just one thing. Just keep it simple.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Nice.
And thank you guys for listening or watching our show. Please, if you like it, share it with some people, subscribe, follow our podcast on Spotify, and
Yeah, we're still looking to get to that 100 subscriber mark, because when you get to the 100 subscriber mark, you can actually change the name of the YouTube channel, and that's what I'm looking forward to. So
yeah.
Small goals.
Small goals. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
Take care. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Wow.